Hi, friends. Welcome again to another episode of Beyond the Clouds Edge to Edge Transformation. And today, again, we have a very interesting person who was the first employee of Silicon Catalyst. Tarun, tell us your story.
Thank you, Shankar, for those warm words and the opportunity to speak to you. My career was primarily in Altera. I did my engineering from IIT Kanpur, came to Berkeley. After I master's, I migrated to Silicon Valley, like most of us in our generation. I had a short stint at National Semiconductor, now Texas Instruments. And I joined Altera in 1990 when it was the early stage FPGA startup with $40 million of revenue. I had a long career there till 2012, where I left when the company was doing about $2 billion worth of revenue. My career was primarily in the technology of back-end operations, and I was leading the packaging efforts for the corporation. So during my tenure, I did a lot of the back-end development, and that was the time when packaging was beginning to be recognized as an important part of the semiconductor. It still was a distant third cousin. Nobody liked it. It was a source of all problems, but there was a recognition, and I'm very pleased on a personal level to see that packaging finally getting its day in the light. So when I left Altera in 2012, I was a consultant at Lattice for 1 year to the VP of R&D, the CTO at that time, and I was helping Lattice define a packaging strategy. So all that was going on, I realized that this is a really exciting opportunity to go to that next level. And in Semicon 2014, I ran into Mike Noonan and Rick Lazansky, who were socializing the concept of Silicon Catalyst. It was just a concept at that time. I was absolutely fascinated by the time because I recognized that Silicon Valley had become Software Valley by that time. Everybody was just talking about software. There was no interest in silicon, and it felt that all this knowledge that we had learned over the years would be useful. So I was very lucky to run into Mike and Rick at the time, and we started discussing. And in January of 2015, we formed Silicon Catalyst. We had our kickoff event on April 30th, 2015 at the now PayPal Park, it was called Avaya Stadium. A week before, Mike, Rick, and I were thinking how many people are going to show up at the event. We were just thinking it's going to be a no-show. 700 people showed up at our kickoff event. Well, I think there are two reasons there. One, Avaya at the time had just opened. It had the largest open door bar in the world. So I think a lot of people just came for that. But on a more serious note, I think people were just amazed at this concept of a silicon startup in Silicon Valley. It was just mind-boggling. I think people were very curious. They were very surprised at our contrarian approach at the time. But having said that, we did win Startup of the Year 2 months later in July of 2015. And that's kind of how this thing started. So we believe that there are differentiated semiconductor solutions that will generate large markets. These markets have changed at time. At the time we started, it was IoT, then it became 5G, then it was ADAS, then Edge AI, now generative AI, and I think the beat goes on. So there have been many things in between. So our belief that fundamental technologies, some semiconductor technologies would drive large markets. Semiconductor innovation drives software. Software is silicon provides the oxygen for software to breathe. This is a much used quote. And that was the basic premise that we started Silicon Catalyst with. So that was my introduction to Silicon Catalyst in 2015. And as you mentioned, I was employee number one, apart from the founder. So we started our operations in one of our leading partners, Advantest. The day we started, we had 9 in-kind partners: TSMC, Synopsys, Advantest, PDF, Keysight, IMEC. So there were 9 foundational members and 6 advisors. So I rushed over and went to the Advantest folks, and they gave us a room in their lobby. So that was Silicon Catalyst's official place for 3 months. We actually lived in the lobby of Advantest, and our first operation started there. We were first, and we built from there. So that's how we all started.
Wow, that is exciting. And in fact, we get to meet at the Advantest, one of the conference rooms every quarter. Yes, that's a delight. Now, most people would have considered Silicon Catalyst a high-risk venture at the time. It's very ironic. Starting a silicon incubator in Silicon Valley is considered a high-risk adventure only because it was a silicon winter and everything was going towards software. What made you join that? It wasn't definitely not money, because most people go because either the money or the satisfaction of changing the world. What made you go into Silicon Catalyst?
I think one common theme you'll find in Silicon Catalyst from all the managing partners as well to the advisors that you belong to. There is a passion about giving back. We all have benefited. We all had careers in Silicon. Most of us did. When we started our careers in the 70s and the 80s, we built a successful career. We saw the rise of great Silicon industries, the whole fabless industry. I was part of the Altera FPGA world, Intel's, the Broadcoms, there's so many companies around LSI Logic that went places. So it was very surprising to us to see this industry suddenly go into this so-called downfall, and most probably the VCs losing total interest. As Mike Noonan often said, it was a kryptonite. People didn't want to talk Silicon in those days. But at the heart of it, we recognize, to quote our chairman, Rick Lazansky, why is hardware development so hard and software development so easy? So ultimately, it boiled down to three things. The development cost, money, which is always an issue, and the availability of talent. So we started addressing those issues by building our in-kind partner network, getting access to money. And we had a strong belief if we put this together, this would work. So as I mentioned, when we opened our doors, we had 9 in-kind partners and 6 advisors. Today, as you know, we have 61 in-kind partners, 275 or 281 advisors this morning, 13 strategic partners, 300 plus investors, entities in Israel and UK, partnerships with 40 plus of the leading universities and half a dozen accelerator partners. And we are instrumental in the CHIPS Act. So we always believed that if this ecosystem grew, it would be successful. And then where we are today, Shankar is directly a part of that growing ecosystem and the proof that the power of the network helps.
That is amazing that in such a short time, about 8 years, so much has been created. Then it's one of the most enviable ecosystems in the semiconductor industry. For sure, if I had a Silicon company today, I would start off with Silicon Catalyst for sure. My question to you is, what's the future? Because you've done so much already. And now the CHIPS Act is here. There's money, not just from the United States, but from virtually every government is putting some money, at least not get sabotaged by what happened in the past, which is get caught up in the supply chain. What's the future of Silicon Catalyst in this new geopolitical scene?
So I think the short answer is very bright. We are the last word in Silicon. We are front and center in any conversation at Silicon that happens. We were talking about the supply chain issues and the issue of STEM learning in 2017 and 2018. We run this thing called an industry forum, our annual event where the thought leadership. I want to give you a factoid. We did our first industry forum at Silicon Valley Bank. 70% of the room, all US citizens or mostly US citizens, were not born in this country. So as a very diverse industry, semiconductors has always been representative of a global fashion. So it's so as the awareness of semiconductors has increased worldwide and also helped with the pandemic and now facilitated by the CHIPS Act and the various acts, we are being approached by various governments across the world, and we are in active discussion with several of them, and we may see some interesting announcements coming out of this partnership. So we see ourselves as being instrumental in helping governments and other partnerships, not by ourselves, but in partnering with others to promote the growth of silicon solutions worldwide.
One thing I was very curious about, in most incubators and when venture capitalists put money, they expect only 30-40% to survive. And they're willing to take that loss because the others will make up for it. At Silicon Catalyst, I find that number is more like 80%. What explains this anomaly that majority of the companies seem to thrive along, pivot, and continue?
Well, I think you know that, Shankar, compared to Silicon is a long development process. Silicon solutions take typically, Melno Ventures told us that it's a typical gestation period from idea to an early exit is about 7 to 8 years. So we're just beginning to see that cycle of companies get there. So most companies are still running their natural course. And also what we have provided through our ecosystem is a lot of invaluable advice that allows these companies to navigate the pitfalls of not only developing a technology, but go to market or realizing how to scale. So I think thanks to our ecosystem, and obviously all credit goes, it's all about the startups. I want to be very emphasized, we're all about the startups. The startups the founders are absolutely brilliant. They believe with a passion. They sometimes go through extreme hardships, but they believe in their idea and they keep at it. And with a little bit of support from Silicon Catalyst, they keep chugging. Quite a few of them are successful. Some are less successful, but as you mentioned, we've only had less than a handful of companies that have closed shop so far. Now, history will tell what happens, but I think it's part of the nature of the beast. Part of it is what we have been able to support in this business.
And how was the evolution of Silicon Catalyst? You had some advisors, now there's an investment arm. Even we're talking about management support and advisory and all that. How did this whole thing evolve?
The truth is, all of us were semiconductor execs in our prior lives, so we had really no incubation experience. So I, as employee number one, Nick Kepler joined us shortly thereafter as employee number two-ish, if you will. So it was Rick, Dan, Nick, and myself in the early days, and there was a marketing partner who since then left. And we would just sit there and say, what makes sense? So think about it. You need a pipeline. So we need pipeline development. And once they come in, there's a process. Now, one thing we all semiconductor people are very familiar with processes. So what is an incubation process? We had certain goals in mind. We offer a 24-month bespoke incubation, which is different from most accelerators, which typically, and I use the word loosely, cookie cutter, 6 months, 4 months program where you do. In our case, we recognize this had to be a bespoke experience. So how do you do that? And so we built up a process where we had a pipeline, a screening, which you have been a part of, a multiple stage screening process. Our screening is best in class because we utilize our entire network, our advisors, in-kind partners. So we believe that our screening is unequivocally best in class. So as you know, that we've looked at 900 companies and we have 97 companies in our portfolio. So our admittance rate is about 10 to 12%. We didn't start out with that number. That's what it fell out to be. So we look at a lot of stuff and we are able to find the best companies. We put them through a curated experience that is personally curated for them. One of us partners becomes their advocate. Now we become two of them together. The advocates have bi-weekly meetings with the CEOs and help them. When they come on board, we have a detailed onboarding meeting, which fleshes out their 24-month plan across the technology development access, the product development access, the go-to-market, the funding, building a team, the marketing rollout. So we look at all the elements and we help the CEO to navigate those processes. And as you know, in a startup, there are many pivots, business conditions change. So one of our startups, which is very successfully has pivoted, started in the ADAS space, but when ADAS fell out of favor, they switched to highway safety and they presented a DAC as well, and it's all autonomous imaging. And you can see their whole story of how they're going pedestrian safety, which has become a big thing, but it started with a different pivot. And Chuck had to go through a lot of challenges and the entire team was behind him across the way to manage those successions. We have so many stories like Spark Microsystem, one of our early Canada-based companies. There were two professors that we met them. Our advisory system is absolutely best in class. They connected with John East, the former founding CEO of Actel. John became their advisor. They joined us in 2016. In the first PC update that I did in December of 2016, John met them. John became their advisor. Eventually, Faris became their CEO. Today, they are raising a 40 million Series B, and their products are getting very popular recognition. So as we started this, so we said, first there's a pipeline, then we bring companies together. So I created this portfolio updates that you have attended. We do biannual portfolio updates. Then as we started building advisors, we started doing quarterly advisor events that you have attended. Pete, when he joined us in 2017, I think his leadership was invaluable because Pete was very clear. It's all about scale. So under his leadership, we have gone assertively and built out the ecosystem. And as you can see, that this robust ecosystem is really Pete's leadership, but a lot of meeting people. And I'm very pleased with the quality of people, the kind of people who have come forward and offer their time. And most people literally come out and say, I want to help. And that is the underlying thesis of Silicon. We look for people who have a bias to help. It's not entirely altruistic. There is some form of compensation, but it is not the primary goal. It's people who have done well in life, want to give back, help somebody, because when they were in that stage of their career, they were looking for that hand. So that is the underlying thesis that we kind of try to sort the people and the partnerships we look for.
So it is very tempting to think of silicon as silicon, doesn't matter which company. But when I look at the diversity of technologies we have, from material science to FPGAs to IoTs to electric vehicles to ADAS LiDAR, and there's so many biotechnology. How do you folks find the right advisors, or is the Silicon Catalyst divided into different verticals? How does it all work together?
No, right now we are not divided into verticals. We have a common pipeline. When we started, we were very CMOS centric. We really looked at CMOS based ideas that were on mainstream CMOS. But as we started getting applications, we said, where else could we go? So then we started expanding to IP. With Paul Pickering joining as a managing partner, we expanded to MEMS and sensors. With Atiye joining, we've now focused on the materials. We are looking to expand to life sciences because as we see, wherever we see an intersection, and as you know, it's inevitable right now of between semiconductors and the other businesses, we see we can add value. We know we are actively look for advisors. So in the recent last 6 months, not that we've been focusing, we are reaching out for advisors in materials and life sciences. And we build up a pool of about 20 or 25 of those. We also have advisors in Europe. We have advisors worldwide. So we also have geographical distribution, and finding advisors is a very critical part of it. Also finding in-kind partners, they're valuable because I think we have all the in-kind partners that are necessary for a CMOS-based system. We are building a strong, robust system in the material science. But then the strategic partners like DuPont and EMD that recently joined us, they are more focused on the materials and life sciences part of it. Not that they don't do semis, but that's that focus. So the combination of strategic partners, advisors, and investors who are focused with that allows us to serve these markets. But ultimately, we look for one common theme, and that is irrespective of the domain. We look for differentiated technologies that are addressing a large market. That is our first filter. And if they address a large market and if there's a capable team, we believe that they are worth taking a look. And that is evidenced by our healthy pipeline. We do biannual cohorts practically, but we do year-round admissions. We are now hitting 50 plus applicants per cycle. And out of that, we admit maybe 5 or 6, so exactly about a 10%. And this has been our track record. We like to scale that up, but this is where we are right now. We're doing about 10 companies a year.
That's wonderful. And one of the questions that gets asked by young entrepreneurs is, what are the criteria, or who should apply to Silicon Catalyst? Does it have to be a chip company? Does it have to be totally into semiconductors? What are the options, and what's the experience level? What do you look for when somebody comes to Silicon Catalyst?
Well, the easiest answer is go to our website and apply. But having said that, we look for a differentiated technology that is addressing a large market. We are not attached. We are not looking necessarily to build the next microprocessor or next FPGA. That's not what we're looking for. A solution that requires a semiconductor. It can be a medical solution. It can be a sensor. It can be battery related. A certain element of semiconductors required to make that happen, because that's where we add value. As far as the team, we have first-time entrepreneurs to seasoned. We are pretty agnostic to the nature of the company, but we do look at certain things as the ability to mentor them. That is important. Are they able to work with the team? Are they able to take feedback? These are the intangible kind of things. The tangible things are differentiated technology addressing a large market. You have a IP, some level of IP protection, and some sense of the market that going after. We also, as Pete likes to say, we also support sometimes crazy science projects, because at heart, we're all technologists. We do fall in love with some of the technologies. And sometimes we believe for these moonshots and Mars shots. So we have a few of those, but we do try to put a bit of a business filter, business viable filter, because ultimately they all need cash at some point to grow. So it has to be a viable business. And it's something about listening to pitches. You get a very good sense of the company very early on, the way they think, the founding team thinks, and that's frankly what we are there for, is to help them out to go to that next level, from PowerPoint to prototype.
Yes, PowerPoint to prototype. At the same time, there is an altruistic angle, the STEM education being one of them. How does Silicon Catalyst participate in these other activities that are not businesses per se? And I know Silicon Catalyst has contributed enormously in STEM education and other related areas as well.
Well, so I think the way we've practically addressed this, and I would recommend interviewing Laura Swan, my partner. She runs our university relations. We recognize 1/3 of our portfolio comes from universities. So we have startups from Stanford, from Cornell, from University of Waterloo, from Northeastern, and I'm sure I'm missing a few others, Oxford University, you name it. We have pretty much all the top universities representing companies that come out there. So we recognize a lot of fundamental research is being done at universities. And through our extended advisor network, what we do is we have created this, what we call the University Ambassador Program. So for instance, you being from IIT Bombay, you would go to IIT Bombay and encourage them with their alma mater, talk about Silicon Catalyst because you have access. So we have programs like that with all the leading universities in the world, including Oxford, Cambridge, Stanford, Berkeley, UC Davis, Purdue, Cornell. And we partner with them and we accelerate ideas. And the idea in that is we help them take their technologies out. We are also, we have just started an interns program with the Berkeley Citrix folks. This is to, and again, Laura has the details, but ultimately what we want to do is bring interns from those programs and have them work with our startups to get a sense and prepare them for what a STEM lifestyle is, if you will. And we plan to build upon it. We're still in the early days, I think, but with the tailwind we're getting from the CHIPS Act and our workforce development and the need that everybody has, I think we will be taking a more larger role in the coming years.
Tarun, on a personal level, you mentioned that you're a packaging guru in the early days of packaging.
I was interconnectologist is a term I use, but go ahead.
Interconnectologist, that's a nice one. Today, interconnects and packaging have become extremely critical with Moore's law slowing down and the need for chiplet interfaces and all that. Do you feel like, oh my God, I want to jump into this and do it? Or are you supporting companies?
I think more of the latter. We actually are actively talking to a few companies that are using chiplets as their strategy in our current cohort. And as you're aware, with Dan and Bapi and Sagar, we had our advisory panel in April to talk about chiplets. So this is something that I want to drive over the next year as for us to be a beachhead for chiplet innovation, not only from the product side, but working with, and this is aspirational, with the government to maybe deploy some kind of a chiplet manufacturing environment so people can produce this. So, but clearly I see Silicon Catalyst as being the forefront of enabling the chiplet economy. As much talk has been going on, there was the first chiplet symposium held in February. I see, so the short answer is Silicon Catalyst will drive it. I will do that. As far as my packaging capabilities, they are way back in the horizon. There's much more evolution, but as you heard during the IMEC, ITF, and others, there's a huge amount of work happening in the space. And I think there'll be huge amounts of innovation and to support either Moore's law or the era of hybrid chips, right? Compound semiconductors, 3-5 materials, alternative materials. So all of this needs to play out, and Silicon Catalyst will continue to be in the forefront of that. We will drive this. Specifics we have to navigate as the situation becomes clearer, but that's kind of the vision we'll do.
Tarun, one of the things that really makes me amazed about Silicon Catalyst, it's one of the few organizations that governments are calling upon today, especially in the United States, but I think that's happening in other places as well. Why is it that the governments are looking towards Silicon Catalyst and not towards many other organizations? What is different about Silicon Catalyst?
I think the executive summary is we are the only accelerator incubator that's purely focused on semiconductor solutions. And we've established a track record, an ecosystem that is unparalleled in the world. I think the ecosystem advisors that you belong to with 280 plus is absolutely industry luminaries. We have CEOs, we have Fortune 100 CTOs, we have directors, vice presidents. The average advisor's got 25 to 30 years of experience in the space, and they have built multi-billion dollars worth of net worth or companies, and they have seen every possible example. So I think there is no parallel to Silicon Catalyst at this point in the world. There are a lot of incubators that are trying to copy us, and they are very candid about it. But where they fail is the ability to attract the advisors. And And I think that ecosystem created gives us the unfair advantage at this point in time. And we hope to, and the other thing is, at some level, even though not entirely, we are fundamentally very startup driven. We're not for, our goal is to help startups. I think that's in the DNA. We're almost a Switzerland, if you will, in the world of startups. We're not wedded to one entity or the other. So we provide a lot of security to our startups because they feel secure in sharing stuff with us, as opposed to going to somebody like a big strategic partner where, yes, you may get some money but then your direction is guided for you as opposed to being a part of that. So I think a combination of those events, the independence, the objectivity that we keep, is what at this point makes us unique from other accelerator incubators that may have biases by nature of their construction, right? Either they're a government entity or they're very focused on one area. The fact that we are very wide and diverse, I think makes us very attractive.
And also, Tarun, you mentioned earlier to me that there's a certain business model that Silicon Catalyst has been using to be a much better partner. So you take common stock and all that. Can you get into a little more details about how Silicon Catalyst works with entrepreneurs so that they're all on one side?
Yeah, so I think we provide in-kind partners goods and services where you get, each company may get up to $2 to $3 million of free services or highly discounted good services to build their silicon. We have an unparalleled access to industry leadership across the world. With our international footprint, we can place you in Europe, North America, Asia. We're able to get you anywhere. Our accessibility, we have a VC network, investor network of 300 plus. You're aware of our recent partnership with Mayfield that has become a strategic investment partner, which will selectively invest with us. We are also partnered with other accelerators. So when we for all the value of these services and for the bespoke 24-month incubation, we ask for common equity in return, where we significantly differ from any regular investor, which we prefer. Our story is we're on the same side of the table as the founders. We will get diluted with them, we'll feel their pain, and our payout is only when they get paid out. This is not that we are a quick take and run kind of company. So that has been the basis of what we started Silicon Catalyst. Our ask is 10 to 12% for early stage startups, and we go down from there. The other thing I want to let you know, Shankar, as you mostly know this, when we created Silicon Catalyst, we were really looking for early stage startups, the two founders, first time founders who have who it was their first venture, they're trying to figure everything out. But what has happened we are now getting later stage companies that have raised Series A, and they're coming to us because of our network and our access, that they have a working prototype, but how to scale it to that next business. And we're beginning to see nibbles from Series B companies, which they haven't signed up yet, that they're looking to this. So the other thing, which I think it was one of your other talks that you had, is Series A and B is fine. I think there is a challenge in the Series C level to scale the businesses to that next level. That is a big unknown. And for that, that's where the management services is coming into play to help companies to get exits and navigate some of those problems. So we are, Pete announced that a few weeks ago. We are in the process of working out the details, but we expect that'll be another area that we can help companies to scale to that next level where they can go to, expand to the next level. So that's kind of the intent of it, but we will work out the details and stay tuned. So I'm sure when we have that formalized, we'll come back and tell you more about it.
All I can say is it's been only 2 years for me at Silicon Catalyst, and it feels like it's home.
Thank you, Noah.
How did you create that environment? Unlike many other places I've been at where it's all business, it feels like a family.
Well, I give a lot of credit to Pete, but I think Rick, as a founder, we had this whole vision of having fun because, we all had done those 80-hour corporate careers, and we were really looking to find, and we look for like-minded individuals, right? The fact that you and I are talking and you and I met, Sagar, or we have so many friends in common, but people who have kind of reached that stage, they can look at things objectively, and the bias to have fun. We really like to have fun. Pete says we're doing God's work. We love our wine, as you well know, right? We love our wine. So we like people who like drinking wine and, but on the lighter side, but keeping it fun, trying to, and just being a catalyst for that next conversation, connecting the dots. I personally, wasn't an entrepreneur, right? I was a corporate technologist, as I shared. But over the last 8 years, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from talking to you or anybody else, and being a common thread among all these players. As you know, I spam people for my biannual events for thousands of people. So most people know me by name and by, and we learned to do Zoom. We were doing Zoom before COVID because we always have a virtual incubator. And during COVID, I was able to learn to Zoom about 1,000 people, and learn to all these skills and ability to do that. We're building Salesforce. So a lot of the making the process easier so one of the things we do a very good job is in the due diligence process, which we'll be inviting you to beginning this week. When we get a company, so let me explain the process of how we vet a company. So every Tuesday we meet as partners, we look at the incoming pipeline, and among the partners, we raise our hands or get volunteered or get assigned to have that initial conversation. So one of us picks up the phone, has a call with the applicant. In 80% of the cases, the applicant has filled out a very simple online form that says, what they're trying to do, why they want us, so on and so forth, which enables for a productive first conversation. Once we have the conversation, we learn about their business, we tell them about what we do, we go through our pitch deck. And if there is interest to go forward, the next meeting, from our pool of advisors, I invite half a dozen, or any one of us, half a dozen advisors, plus minus, who are domain and business experts in that place. We get them, we do a deep dive, and all these advisors, we now have created online forms where the advisors can summarize their feedback. And the bottom line, we call it the good, the bad, the ugly. So the good is pretty obvious in most companies because clearly it's a good idea, otherwise the entrepreneur wouldn't be doing it. The bad and the ugly is where we help out. And in almost 90% of the cases, the product market window fit is the challenge. It's, idea ahead of its time or not well out. And of course, the market, that product market window fit is we spend. Once we provide that feedback, if it resonates with the entrepreneur, then we, with our advisory pool and Silicon Catalyst partners, we try to help them address the bad and the ugly. We can't solve all of them, but at least recognize the known knowns, unknown unknowns, all of that kind of parameters. And we give them a template very similar to the Sequoia template, but it's like to make a proper pitch. Once they get to that state of readiness, the first level, our strategic partners, our 13 strategic partners, this is a very amazing group of individuals, either CTO of Bosch and ARM or equivalent of those kind of our partners. They sit in a room. At that point, they're not competing. They listen to the same pitch from these portfolio applicants at that time. And if it resonates with them, then we again provide a cycle of feedback. Then we trim it down and we take it to a final screening where our entire in-kind partner, a large bunch of our advisors, think of it as a glorified Shark Tank. 100 pairs of eyes interview you, and then we rate them, and then you get finally selected. So this process, there are the reasons to do this. A, we want to expose the companies to multiple opportunities. Second, have our ecosystem understand that this company is going to be part, so they understand the company with all its limitations, what's good, what's bad. So, and what I have seen, and you've been a part of these, as we do the portfolio updates, we do this biannually. So the very typical feedback is, I remember this company when they first applied to Silicon Catalyst, their first pitch, they were like, or now they have made so much progress, they've got a customer, they've raised money. And that is heartwarming to hear because people have seen the evolution of the company. And that was our model. If the ecosystem gets to see the company, they don't have to engage on day one. So they can see a company's growth, they can participate and join into that. So that's kind of the uniqueness of our model. And because it's such a team effort and such a collaborative effort, I think it has worked very well. And I'm very proud to see where we are today on that.
I think from now onwards, you should give a statutory warning to entrepreneurs who come to us, which is, besides making a company, you will have a lot of fun. There's no choice about having fun.
Well, I think that is the only way to do it, man. Otherwise, the entrepreneurs work very hard. We are just so impressed by the quality of our entrepreneurs. And we are just, as I said, it's all about the startups. At the end of the day, we would not be there if they were not there. So it's all about what's next, right? That's our logo for many years. We have many logos, but that's the one that's the prevalent. It's all about what's next. So if you looked at our recent, you're at our Semicon booth, you look at that periodic table that we created, we had like 5 elements. Now we're almost close to 50 elements, and they keep on increasing because the range of innovation that we can do, and we keep coming up with that. And that's really it. We are just bounded by our imagination, and we hope to continue to do that for many years to come.
And I'm glad I'm talking to the numero uno employee of Silicon Catalyst.
Just number one employee. I think my partners are all very capable. We are all, it's all about the team, man. I happen to be the one who put his hat in the ring first, but I'm very pleased to do so and look forward to continuing the mission of Silicon Catalyst to accelerate startups worldwide.
And we'll have to call you back when we start seeing major profitable companies that are exiting, and hopefully when we have our first IPO. So thanks again.
From your words to God's mouth, I'll make it come true. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, Shankar. It's really a pleasure talking to you. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.